Hi, stay safe and have a go at making this Mortise Tenon joint. So let's say I want to join these two components together by putting a mortise in this component and a tenon on this component. I would normally prepare the stiles a little over length, leaving an excess here which can be sawn off once the whole panel's completed at the last moment, and it protects basically the panel around the workshop. Make a couple of marks there. We want to leave a fair amount of material at the top, and down the bottom we can be quite close to the joint line. I take my mortising gauge, set the pins to the exact width of my mortising chisel and mark between the two lines. Now I'll take a marking knife and knife a line across the end of those gauge lines, just so we have a nice crisp end to the mortise. I've clamped the workpiece onto the bench above a leg so it's nicely supported, and I've also clamped on a block with a straight edge up the front here, which I can use to align the side of my mortise chisel. And you need to go in perpendicular, otherwise your joint won't go together flat. So place the tip of the chisel with the bevel facing away from the end of the mortise and in about 1/8 of an inch from the end. Press it in a little bit, just between the mortise gauge lines. Line it up at 90 degrees, as you see here, nice and parallel, and give it a good couple of strikes. Take it out, move it back a little bit, perhaps 1/4 of an inch, again between the gauge lines, stand it upright, perpendicular, a couple of knocks, push the chisel away from yourself and then rock it back against the bevel, and you take your first chip out. Then you just continue along the line. Now I've got to just over 1/8 of an inch from this end. I'm going to turn my chisel round so the bevel's pointing towards the middle of the mortise now. Line it up again, a couple of strokes straight down, lift the chisel out, turn it round, push it down back to where it was originally struck, then lever off the end of the mortise. This is why we leave a little bit at the end, because levering on it will damage it, so we don't want to come right to our line at this point. So that's the first level out of our mortise. Now we can keep going down. That's about 1/4 of an inch I've gone so far, so I've got a fair few layers to go until I get to the bottom. The difference in tone when I hit that, that means it's reached the bottom. Now just be a bit careful getting this out. We don't want to lever on the back of the mortise. We want to preserve that nice and clean. And what you can do is drop a little chip in, just push it below the surface, and you can lever on that. Then we'll go to the other end, Go close to but not on the end line. And then drop the chisel into that knife line. To mark out for the tenon, first of all we need the depth.
I'm using the blade of the square, but you could use a depth gauge just as well.
We want to leave a little bit of a gap at the bottom just for glue. Mark that on, and that's going to be the shoulder line for the tenon. And we can now scribe that all the way around the work using the engineer's square and a marking knife.
Now using the Mortise gauge, I gauge the tenon cheeks. Saw the tenon shoulders. And the tenon cheeks.
Clean into the corner with a chisel. Do a quick test fit. That's nice and tight. That's what we want. Now just use a sharp chisel to clean back to your knife lines.
Clean the cheeks for a snug fit using a shoulder plane or chisel.
Don't have to worry too much about tear out at the ends because we're going to chop for the edges of the tenons. Just keep the back of the chisel flat against the tenon. Keep checking for straight and flat across there and take out any bumps. Now back around on the face side. I just need to line up the marks which gave me the position I wanted the components to end up in. Line those up with the end of the tenon, and then I can just mark on where the ends of the mortise are. Now take a chisel and just pair that to the line. So drop it in my knife line. There we go. Still got the ear on the top here. So what I've done is I've just scored a line across level with the rail, and now I'll just saw that off and plane it with a block plane. There we go. So there we have our completed mortise and tenon joint, cut entirely by hand.
I wonder how Guy would do it with power tools.
Look after yourselves and don't forget to subscribe to see videos every day during the COVID-19 problems.